What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Healthcare Hustle Podcast. Today, we are joined by Al Campbell, Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Christian Hospital and Northwest Healthcare in St. Louis, Missouri. Al, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Really glad to join you all here, and thank you for the invitation, Winston, Brandon, and Nigel. So a blessing to be with you on tonight. So look forward to this conversation with you, man.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Hal, for joining us. One thing we like to do is just kind of kick it off. If you could just talk a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are now, and just kind of share your inspiring journey a little bit.
Yeah. So, for me, growing up, I grew up in New Jersey, and from a young age, I volunteered in a local hospital. And, my mom was always a mentor to me. I grew up in a single parent household, and I was the oldest of four boys. And she always had a structured path and plan set for me. And so volunteering at our local community hospital, Muhlenberg Regional Medical Center in Plainfield, New Jersey, really helped to set the tone there for me, and the roadmap for me going into healthcare. And I can remember volunteering on the floor where she was a nurse on the oncology unit. And I would even spend some time volunteering on the intensive medical care unit as well. And at that point in time, fellas, I said, man, I want to be a cardiologist. When I grow up, I want to be a cardiologist. And I am a proud product of public schools in New Jersey, inner city. But it was a little challenging too, It was hard growing up. We had to fight our way home some days in the afternoon after school, and didn't let that deter me. But I didn't feel that I had the best grades coming out of high school that I would be able to successfully make it to medical school. And I remember one day my mom said to me, "You're going to college and you're going to get out of here, and you're going to go make something of yourself." And I had this whole little plan in my head. I was just going to do something local in the community. And she said, "Over my dead body." And she says, "You're going to college, so start looking at some places." So I remember going to school and going to the guidance counselor and saying, "My mama said I got to go to college, so I need some recommendations." And I was able to get into my now alma mater, Norfolk State University. Behold the green and gold in Norfolk, Virginia. And a successful 4 years there at Norfolk State University. And I still had that passion that I wanted to go to medical school. In fact, when I was growing up, I even remember me and my aunts, because my mom's baby sisters, they were closer in age to me and my cousin, we would play doctors in the house growing up. And so all of us knew we wanted to go into medicine. And by the time I was getting ready to graduate from college, I got this fear that had kicked in. And it said to me, "You're not going to make it. You're not going to get a high enough MCAT score. So don't even bother doing it, because you're just going to fail and embarrass yourself." And so I said, "Nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to take the MCATs because I'm just not going to make it." And I remember graduating, my mom saying to me, "You need to go to nursing school. You need to go to nursing school. You need to go to nursing school." I'm like, "Well, men don't go into nursing." And I grew up in a Caribbean household. And I remember the stigma that was way back then, where they would see a man that was a nurse and be like, "He's a male nurse." I was like, "How? Why does it always have to be a male nurse?" And I was like, "So I'm not going to become a nurse." And lo and behold, I listened to my mom like a good son, and I went into nursing. And I love the journey ever since then. I haven't regretted it. I've had the chance to work on the floor. I've had the chance to work in management. I've worked long-term care, acute rehab, med surg, cardiac, and I've absolutely loved the ride. One of my earlier introductions I didn't tell you, though, was becoming an emergency medical technician in New Jersey. And I worked City 911 and saw some of the most severe cases and worked with some of the best in the EMS field. And so all of those various experiences really helped to shape my continued yearning and curiosity about wanting to climb up in healthcare. And so from there, I turned around and I said, "I'm coming off the floor. I'm going to do something different." And I went into quality, and I became a quality nurse in a rehab center. And I really enjoyed just looking at things from a holistic lens. And so that was what really took the journey for me and set the stage for me saying, I want to go into operations because I really love looking at things from a global perspective. And from there, I had a number of different opportunities. But if it wasn't for the early experiences that I had growing up in the inner city, having a structured household, we didn't grow up with a lot of things, but we didn't know we were poor. You know, my mama worked 7 days a week, 16 hours a day to make sure that we had a home to live in. We were in a stable neighborhood, and we were living just as well as the other families that had a two-parent household. So I credit all of that from my humble beginnings, growing up in the inner city with my mom. And being the oldest, I had to shape the path for my other siblings that were right behind me too. And so those are some of the things that really helped me to get to where I am now. And then I remember one of my first director type jobs, like coming off the floor from quality, was a senior director of operations for behavioral health at a 900-bed hospital in DC. And man, fellas, when I tell you that was the roughest 2 years of my life, it was rough. It was so rough. Behavioral health psychiatry. But I enjoyed the experience because it taught me so much and gave me great exposure. And then after that, I had the opportunity to meet a really, really cool leader who became a mentor, and she took me in under her wings. She's still a mentor to this day. Her name is Susan Bailey. And Susan asked me one day, I was sitting in her office, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a CEO. And she says, okay, well, we're going to try to help you get there. And she made me vice president. And I was only 32 years old, y'all. I was green, but it was that mentorship that really went a long way from her that helped to set the tone for me. Becoming a vice president, leading LTACs at 32 years old. And then the rest was history from there, fellas.
Wow. That is fascinating. By chance, are you first generation in terms of Caribbean heritage?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
This is fascinating. A lot of things are just kind of, spinning in my mind. I think from just the inner city background, obviously, the Caribbean background, and just your experience overall, and your mom just being a force and kind of a pivotal, figure in your life definitely resonates with me. The EMT experience really
Yep.
stands out. That really stands out. Can you speak to some of the key distinctions and learnings that you kind of took away in all of these various healthcare settings? Because it's a lot of different experience at a relatively young age as well.
Yeah. It made me curious to like want to do more. And what I said was to myself, I'm just not going to stop right here. I'm going to keep on climbing. I'm going to keep on going. And I always found myself surrounded by people that were relatively older and smarter and had already had exposure and experience. And so they said, this is what you should do, or maybe you should do this. But I always go back to it being my mom saying, okay, what's next? I was like, Ma, guess what I did? And I'm successful at it. She's like, okay, proud of you, but what's next? What you gonna do now? And I'm like, well, man, shucks, this is big news right here. And I didn't realize she just wanted to continue to push me to a higher level. And then, growing up, we grew up in the church as well. So you were grounded by your faith. And from a young age, my mama didn't play with church. You could stay up all night long, but you going to church in the morning. And she was serious about that thing. And there wasn't no going outside and playing on Sunday afternoons. It was come home and stay in the house on Sunday afternoons, but you're going to church on Sunday. And we used to try to fake it. You ain't got no socks today. You're going to church with no socks, and there was no way out of it. And we would sit in church all day long is what it would feel like. We grew up in a holiness Pentecostal church. But those beginnings really helped to take that along with me when I went into college, and then even coming out of college into my adulthood, the importance of having a higher faith and belief that you too can continue to reach your goals if you believe, and if you're prayerful about it too at the same time. And so I hold on to that from my humble earlier years of life as well.
You made me thank you for that. You also made me not want to ask a question earlier. It's something that you said because it was kind of centered around your experience as a male, quote unquote, nurse, or even more specifically a Black, male nurse. And I know for each person is different, but was that something where you kind of experienced? Was your identity kind of on display oftentimes in your interactions as a nurse and nurse leader?
It worked to my benefit. I have to say, being the male nurse, a lot of times you were the only male nurse that was on the floor. So it worked really well in some advantages. You'd be able to schmooze your way through things. You didn't get as many of the hard patients because you have friends, some of the females as friends. And then you always had it where you would take care of a patient, and then the family members are like, "Oh, I have a daughter. Are you single?" You always had that piece there. Somebody trying to hook you up. But all in all, I think it was always a blessing because you were able to lend a hand to the teams. So I've always found it to be a blessing to be a part of the team. Nursing has significantly changed. There's a vast look of nursing now from where it was years ago. It's extremely acceptable to have multiculturals of races that are men in nursing. We even have our own professional associations for men in nursing now. And so that has evolved and helped the profession to really, really evolve. That you see people are wanting to go straight in from high school to college to nursing. And it's not as just a second career decision that you're making anymore. It's a passion and desire straight out of high school that you want to go into the profession. So it had a lot of benefits to it, I'll say.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there. And I think starting off, in regards to just being a Black nurse and kind of going against that stigma, I do want to kind of give you your roses because I think a lot of times us as Black men, we kind of limit and, kind of pigeonhole ourselves into thinking that we have to conform to a certain, I guess you could say, identity or characteristics. So hats off to you for kind of pioneering that path and kind of making the most of that opportunity. With that in mind, you also talked about a mentor who kind of opened the doors for you, and I think that was a perfect example of intentional mentorship. And I would love if you had some time just to kind of touch on what you feel is what intentional mentorship looks like for Black employees or employees of colors or those of marginalized communities.
Yeah. It's multifactorial and it's bidirectional at the same time, right? So it's important for us as senior executives to be intentional about supporting, mentoring, and reaching back to bring specifically Black and brown young persons that are aspiring to reach their goals along on this journey. A leader once said, Charles Williams, who is from Texas, that once you make it through that swing door and there's a hinge on the door, don't take the hinge off the door so no one else can come through. Keep it open so that others too can follow you into the room. And I never forgot that. And it's so very valuable and important that once we find ourselves having a seat at the table, to continue to create the opportunity for others to have a chance to have a seat at the table as well. And then being able to have a space in the room where the decisions are happening. So I think we have to be very cognizant and aware of that. And it's really important that we're cognizant and aware of it when we're specifically looking and identifying young Black and brown talent to help to reach their goals as well. And I think bidirectionally, for young aspiring healthcare leaders that are looking to aspire to come into the C-suite or come into healthcare and to reach their goals, is seeking out mentors. And just not seeking out mentors that look like us. It's okay to have decision makers and leaders that don't look like us, but have a vested interest in us wanting to be successful, that they can provide mentorship. And it's okay to tell your story of where you want to go and being vulnerable in that space. And in that transparent, vulnerable moment, you'll find someone that wants to help you to achieve your goals. So I think it is bi-directional. We as the leaders have to be intentional about reaching back and not forgetting how we got here. And then two, young aspiring healthcare leaders that are up and coming, also wanting to identify leaders that look like us, to be able to have that connection, but then some that don't look like us to help to support them as well.
I love that. A lot of wisdom there, very salient. I want to kind of expand on that as well. This is a little bit of a loaded question, but can you speak to, just throughout your experience, both as a mentee and a mentor, what are some of the qualities that you think makes, a good mentor and mentee?
So in terms of good qualities of a mentor, I believe it's really important that you're honest with your mentees, and you don't sugarcoat it. You got to tell them like it is. One time and I'll give you an example. Um, I had just become a chief operating officer in one of our LTACs in Washington, D.C. And my boss, Susan Bailey, had put me through this whole orientation process to meet with all of the other leaders, the CEOs that were in the organization as well. And I remember one of them saying to me, he was very blunt. He says, "There will come a day in which you are fired." And that's not a bad thing. It could be for something you may have done, or something that the organization just chose to go in a different direction. But you have to be able to dust off your knees, strap your boots back up, and keep on moving. And I walked away from that orientation session with him, fellas, and I was like, man, that's one of the damnest, coldest things somebody could ever say to somebody just getting their first COO job. And I was so upset with him saying that to me. But I figured out, oh, later on in life, okay, and seeing it happen around me, and hearing about it, it's not the worst thing that could ever happen to someone. And it is going to happen. The higher you go in organizations, it could happen. But it's really, really important that, it's not the end of the world. So I say that to say that as mentors, it's important that we are honest, being able to hold that mirror up to our mentees and say, this is what you're looking like. This is what the road could look like ahead for you, but don't be dismayed, because you can be successful still. And just being honest with our mentees. And I think it's also very important for mentees to choose mentors that are going to be honest with them and challenge them. You just don't want somebody you can go and laugh and have a good time in their office and you agree about everything, but someone that's going to be able to give you a transparent, honest communication and help you to really push yourself, because it's easy to get stuck at times. And someone that has a vast array of knowledge and expertise in multiplicity of different areas. Just don't get sucked in because it's someone nice that gave me an opportunity, right? It has to be someone that is going to be able to push you to really achieve your highest goals and strive for your achievements as well.
Yeah, wow, this is just a comment. That's really profound. I think what the leader had told you in the first day on your job, and thinking about failure in such an extreme way. I'm thinking, kind of back on my journey as a college student, high school student. Failure may have been failing a test or a class or something. And you embrace that. Okay, embracing failure. But as a
Right.
young professional now, I'm like, whoa, what is the extreme side of failure? That could be potentially losing my job. And how would I respond to that? How would I,
Yeah.
react to that? And so just, yeah, I feel like that's kind of even giving me more motivation to, just think about things a little bit different, because you're right. It does happen. And it's almost a skill that you have to know how to bounce back, dust yourself off and do that. So I just appreciate that story.
Yeah, man. It's really important. It's not the end of the world. And one of the things I've learned, and I'll share another story with you. Um, Getting through nursing school was even challenging for me. And I didn't think I was gonna make it. Them sciences will kick your tail. And I was like, what the heck is this? I ain't gonna make it. And I had some friends that were from Africa, and they were really, really smart. And they were like, you can too. I was like, well, how y'all passing these tests and I ain't passing them? I just couldn't understand it at that point in time. But I linked up with them and stayed close and learned their study techniques and habits, and I hung in there. And it wasn't easy. And so I say to anyone, when you find that getting distracted or becoming dismayed, and you just want to give up, just figure out other alternative strategies to really trying to hang in there and to reach those goals. So it's really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. And I would say, as far as me and the listeners, I think we all appreciate that word of encouragement. I think we can all kind of relate to that story a little bit. What I would really like to do is I'd hate to miss the opportunity to kind of pick your brain, because you did make a good point of reaching out to your resources and kind of identifying people who might be smarter than you, and identifying the gap and saying, you know what, let me approach them and say, what is it that I'm doing wrong? What is it that I can do better? And I'd love to get your thoughts on operations, because you've worn a lot of different hats in regards to operations.
Yeah.
So it's somebody who's kind of worked with a lot of different health systems. And for young professionals listening, what is health operations, and what skill sets do you really need to kind of get into that field?
Yeah. I talk to a lot of people, and people that are aspiring to move into the C-suite, aspiring to move into operational type leadership roles, or at the vice president level. And I'll say, so what do you want to do when you grow up, or what do you want to do when you get to this level? I want to be like you. But that's not it, right? You got to be your authentic self. You know what I'm saying? If you're trying to come into this work. And it's not easy. It really and truly isn't easy. You may have heard of the saying that the air is thin at the top. You don't have a whole lot of friends up there either. And it's easy to be distracted. So I say to anyone that wants to get into operations and in healthcare, the importance of really diversifying your background. It is extremely key to learn different industries, different verticals, because, let's face it, guys, hospitals are not the end all be all to healthcare. There's a complete and entire ecosystem out there that we can tap into. And so I say to you and to our listeners, think about the inpatient verticals. Think about ambulatory and outpatient verticals. There's the capital venture industry side of things, and which is really popping up left and right as well in healthcare, to some of the other startups that we are actually seeing. Telemedicine, the telemedicine side of our industry is really booming and exploding. And so as technology continues to advance, innovation continues to be at the forefront of organizations. It's really, really important for us to diversify our skill set. You may not be a clinician, but it's okay to learn clinical platforms, right? If you got a brain, you can learn. And so it's really, really important to really try to diversify yourself and your skill set, so that once you do get that seat at the table, you're prepared, or you have some substance that you're able to weigh in on the decisions and conversations that really help to shape, mold, and continue to grow the organizations that we're responsible for. But one of the things I'll say that's even more important than, the job description, right? Because the job description you'll see for an operator is to lead the daily operations and all the assigned areas in it. That's all the good stuff, right? Fluff, fluff, fluff on the job description. You got to have a heart for the people. That's first and foremost, because people will come at you each and every day, whether it's the patients, whether it's your customers, whether it's your colleagues, employees, with different scenarios, different challenges. And you have to have a heart for people. And even more so, we have to have a heart for people in these times that we are living in today, because the workforce, they have options. And so it's really, really important that we're able to connect with the workforce. So I believe it's really important for operators to be versatile in how you interact with the workforce. It's taking time to sit down and have lunch with them in the cafeteria, going to the cafeteria and just rounding on everybody, going up onto the floors and seeing how they're doing, going to the community to see how they're doing in their various respective roles as well. And then it's also really important to be an inspiring leader. You got to inspire people to do more and tell them, man, you're going to make it. You're going to be all right today. They need to hear that. Somebody's coming to work hanging on by a thread. And so that word or that little opportunity in which you're able to encourage someone, even as an operator, goes such a long, long way. And so I found that engaging with our people, inspiring our people, is really, really one of the key attributes to being a successful operator. And then how do I motivate the entire workforce to want to do better, right? So every day is an exciting day. I don't care if it's jacked up from the floor. It's an exciting day. We're going to do some big things, today. And really helping people to believe that and then getting them pumped about it at the same time. So it's really, really important for us to be able to have those people characteristics or traits to be able to help lead an organization while at the same time having the sound operational and financial skill set as well.
Wow. Sound bite of the year. Right there. Really. Brandon, I'm sitting here listening to Al. I'm like, man, if he was my preceptor during my fellowship, maybe I'd be in an operative role right now. And it's funny, the last part you said, while maintaining all of the business, financial, operative, clinical acumen, if you will. That is where, Al, for me personally, I struggled to see how such a visionary leader like yourself managed that balancing act. Because it just seemed like in different environments, maybe it depends on the hospital or the facility. Sometimes the operators are so focused on the spreadsheet. They're so focused on the P&L. They're so focused on, the patient flow and throughput that really challenging them sometimes to be the people leader is kind of why I feel like sometimes we have higher turnover than
Right.
other industries.
Right.
So can you kind of just break that down? I mean, what are some of your your tips, your tricks? How can folks in your position that want that ability, want that a part of their skill set, how can they kind of get there?
Yeah, man, it's normalizing the role. We have to normalize it. Earlier on in my career, I remember, and I subscribed to this mantra that I had to walk in every single day with a blue suit, a white shirt, a red tie, a blue tie, a orange tie, every single day, 5 days a week, right? And then I remember someone saying, "It's okay, lose a tie." That's come about more so recent in a number of years. But, I was so conservative in my thought process that I'm a vice president and I have to wear this 5 days a week. And you know what? It's okay for me not to do that. I mean, you still have the title, but people want to talk to you and approach you when you're approachable, right? And how you carry yourself. And so now, man, there's days you'll see me in scrubs. And I'll walk up on folk, they'll be like, "Oh, shucks, it's Al." They don't see you coming. And with the mask on and everything, they don't see it. But it really humanizes the role to remember that we're people just like them. And then to get out and to walk and spend time with our teams, it's really, really important. I have this thing, I like to just go in the cafeteria just to walk, see people, because you learn a lot in the cafeteria. Especially from our ancillary areas, man, they're the joy of my day, and being able to get to talk to them and just be down home real people with them too. So I think it's important that we humanize the role. And I remember, guys, from my earlier days when I was on the floor, you would see a suit coming and they walk in and they got a clipboard and a pen and two phones. And oh hell, here they go. I don't feel like dealing with that today. Let me go in this patient room because I don't feel like hearing it. And I always said to myself, I never want to be that leader. I never want to be that kind of person that once people see you coming, they run the other way. So now when they see me, it's like, I know what you go through. I understand. Let's talk. What can we do to support you? And then I think the other component is to have an open door policy, but just not have an open door policy. Actually mean it, right? You know, that people can just, hey, I need to talk to Al, and that's cool. We can talk, because sometimes it's just people just want to come by to say hello because you've built relationships with them. So we can never take for granted the importance of us building relationships, not just with our direct management teams that report to us, but what does the relationship look like with building those connections with the entire organization? And that's from the boiler room to the bedside to the boardroom. At every level in the organization, it's important for us to be able to do that.
Yeah, I really appreciate that sincerely. Because as somebody who's kind of just getting started on their career, it's good to see leaders who understand things at the bottom level and understanding and having that perspective. For me personally, anyways, and I will also say this. I think it's crucial, just in regards to your leadership style, how infectious you are in regard to just being genuine, bringing that energy.
You know,
I think it speaks volumes as far as somebody who I can look to and say, you know what, if this guy is waking up doing it, I definitely do it. There's no reason I can't. So
absolutely.
With that being said, just in regards to how culture kind of eats strategy for breakfast, what are some things you try to focus on when you go to these different, as you go from different organization to different organization and kind of changing the leadership and the style a little bit? What are some things that you look to do to try to change the culture or try to change the day-to-day, the kind of old stigmas around different organizations?
And I think, Brandon, that is a really, really important question. It's important that we pace ourselves. I've had to learn how to pace myself in the workplace, because people want to come in and sometimes go, 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 drive, drive, drive. No, man, you got to understand this place got culture. We're a family, and you ain't gonna come upset the apple cart just that quick. And so it's really important to build relationships. It's important to listen, to understand the processes of why the way things are and why do we do things the way we do them. And really focusing on those relationships and understanding the people. Because, a lot of times what I found, fellas, people are proudful. Their pride is there in the work that they're doing. They're proud of the work that they've done. And so they don't want somebody to just come in and spread peanut butter all over everything that we've done all these years, right? So it's really, really important that as we as leaders assimilate into the organization, taking our time to pace ourselves. It's okay to want to move things and really focus on the strategy and execution, but really understanding and learning the organization first and foremost, and building those relationships. Because at the end of the day, you'll get a whole lot with some honey if you treat people well and they feel that they can trust you, right? But if you come in and people don't know you and they haven't built that relationship with you in time, it will lead into a negative path for you, potentially could. So I think it's really important that while we're trying to focus on the strategy and growing our books of business, we're also really methodical of honoring and respecting the culture that has been in place in the organization, and then really learning why the organization operates in the manner in which it operates so that we can be successful in helping to move the teams along. Because once they feel like, man, you're a good guy, I could trust you, I could work with you, they'll go all the way to the end for you with it. So that's what I've learned.
Yeah, I love that. I think that it, for me, as in my position where I'm at in my career, it's a lesson that I'm learning as well. Number one, that it's a slow process, but with for good reasons, for a lot of good reasons though.
Right.
And also, yeah, it's all about building the relationship, because that validates pretty much everything that you're trying to do and accomplish within the organization. One thing that I thought about though, and I'd still get chills thinking about this, is the onset of COVID and the first wave, and how that really forced. I was a fellow at the time, so I was able to see right there with the executives just how it forced them really adapt in a totally different way. So can you speak to just how that process was for you? What are some of the major learnings, and then how do you feel like we've kind of permanently changed, because of the pandemic?
Yeah, yeah. I go back to um, when we first heard about COVID, uh, and we saw it like in Asia, right? And there was something that was happening in Asia, and like, okay, it's over there, it ain't over here. And I remember um, hearing about one of the first cases here in the United States, and I had just went to Trinidad and Tobago, coming back um, from Carnival, and I came back myself, and I didn't feel well. And I'm like, what's going on with me here? Shucks. It's February though, so I'm just coming back and it's cold. So maybe that's what it is. But unbeknownst to me, it was COVID too. And I just remember um, in those earlier days, some of the things that we learned. We didn't have a playbook for how we manage patients coming into the hospital with COVID. Do staff wear masks? Do staff not wear masks? Okay, do we provide breathing treatments for patients, when they're coming in, or do we not? And there was a lot that was going through, and the playbook would change from day to day as to what we were doing in our hospitals. And what we found was, you know, we do a lot of planning for disasters and drills, but there was no plan for no COVID, right? And so we were trying to make it up as we went along. So in that, we found that a lot of our systems had to be fast forwarded, really with the implementation of more telemedicine, which has really taken off and really has made us thought a lot differently as to how we approach particularly outpatient healthcare and services. And it's working. It really is working. Because we thought, well, we're not going to have patients. This is not going to work for certain patient populations with televisits. But guess what? Now it's working, right? So we learned a whole lot in the pandemic to how we were. I'll be honest with you, the storage of bodies of the deceased, and what that would look like, and when morgues started to get to capacity, and then having to find other alternatives for where we were storing deceased loved ones. But our organizations were not prepared for that pandemic and the way it hit us. But coming out of that, and as we emerge from it now, and as more people are now vaccinated, and we've seen that the vaccines have worked, I think that we have a better handle on how we are prepared for another pandemic. One of the things that it's also shown us is it's turned us upside down, and we've really had to look at our staffing models in organizations, and how do we really be innovative with our staffing models, because we did have very structured staffing models in a number of different platforms of services in hospitals, but really the importance of us being more versatile in the recruitment of staff, and then really ensuring that we've got the right clinicians providing care services and treatments to our patients as well. So we've learned a lot of things coming out of it, but in the heat of it, there was certainly no playbook. The playbook that we did create day to day changed even day to day. And now, so as we emerge from it, I think we're in a better position. We still are in a period of not knowing what certain staffing levels are going to look like, or the recruitment of staff is still a challenge, with there being so many agency roles that are out there, in which staff and clinicians can make more money as well. So it's something that's going to be ongoing for some time. The effects of the pandemic in our organizations, we're still going to feel it.
That was going to be my brief follow-up question. What is the main challenge to a COO in the United States at a hospital now in this current time?
So I think that a challenge and an opportunity is for us to be able to focus on the business at hand. We got to stay very focused on the business at hand. How do we continue to grow programs within our organizations to continue to meet the needs of our patients? Remember, it's a whole ecosystem. So we want to be able to meet the patient's needs on the inpatient side as well as the outpatient side of our books of business. We got to remain nimble. We have to really ensure that we're focused on growing revenue, but then at the same time, really also looking to see where the other great opportunities that we have in the organization. And again, I go back to really one of the main responsibilities is not forgetting our people, because without the people, we're going to be dead in the water. And so we've got to make sure we're taking care of the people. And my CEO, Rick Stevens, says it best: we're people taking care of people. And it's really important to remember that. And that resonates with me, that we are people taking care of people, and the importance of how we take care of others. They're going to take care of others too. Because if we treat them well, we're going to see it reflected in how they treat our patients. And if we don't, we're going to hear it from them telling the patients too, and it's going to refer in the community. An example, nurses, or staff, any staff. Well, we don't have enough staff. We short, everybody's short, and then you hear that down in the road and it comes back up. I went to the hospital, they were all short staff. Everybody said it. So it's really, really impressed upon us to make sure that we're taking care of our people so that they can do the good work of taking care of the people that are entrusting themselves to us for care.
Well, I appreciate that sincerely. I mean, I know me personally, I coming into my fellowship, the pandemic kind of rocked everybody's world, and you just kind of had to adjust to what was called the new norm. And we're on the other side of things. You're seeing what stayed around and what maybe kind of will not change. And then you're also curious as to what new trends are gonna on the horizon. And I think, one of the things that I always try to do is be an avid learner and always try to look for sources of knowledge. For our listeners, do you have places that you go, or do you see anything on the horizon as far as just to get your healthcare information or things that you might be maybe people want to put on their radar?
I would say it's a couple of things, Brandon, that are really, really important for us to stay abreast. A special shout out to Becker's Health. I think they do a really, really good job of being a source of information, and they find the information and give it to you. They do a good job. So definitely glad for that resource that we actually have. Modern healthcare really also helps to give us a good perspective and snapshot of what's happening within the healthcare industry itself. I think that it's really, really important to have our professional affiliations for our respective industries and stay very closely connected to those as well, right? Very important. ACHE, extremely valuable. NACI, extremely valuable. Any other industry-specific sources that we can tap into related to our areas of practice are very, very valuable. And I think it's also really, really important to have those connections at the local levels within our organizations as well. The young executives, healthcare executives, work groups that are there within our organizations, and collaborative work groups within the organization, so that we can tap into those also. Those cannot be underestimated. But there's a plethora of them that are out there. So it's more so industry specific that we need to tap into them. And then, the education and continuous learning, even with certifications. And then really a lot of organizations now provide that tuition reimbursement. So it's up to us to want to benefit from that, to get additional certifications, whether that's in Lean, Six Sigma, or any of those, to help to diversify our background and skill set as well. So there are a number of sources.
Wow, very, very informative. Well, we are coming up, around our time. So, Al, we definitely appreciate all of the gems and wisdom that you shared with us, as well as the personal stories today. Our co-host Nigel usually has a really fun, interactive session at the end of each episode. It's kind of a rapid fire
Okay.
Question round. I am not as creative as he is, though. So
Okay.
I have some rapid fire questions. You
Wow.
being a Jersey East Coast kid,
All right.
I'm a Philly kid, so I'm just
Yeah.
interested, and thinking, how about how you grew up. So three questions, real quick. What was your favorite album growing up?
Oh man, my favorite album. Bob Marley.
Love it.
Bob Marley. I'm a Bob Marley guy all day, all night. I can play it over and over and
Yeah.
over and over. Every single song.
Oh, I love
Yep.
it. Love the
Yep.
reggae. Okay. Favorite sports team?
Dallas Cowboys.
Ah,
Yep.
let's get
Yep.
past that. And then favorite TV show.
Fat Albert.
Oh,
Back in the day. Love, 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 love Fat Albert. Yes, sir.
love it,
Yes,
love
sir.
it, love it. Well, Al,
Yep.
thank you so much for entertaining us in our quick
Thank you.
fire round. Is there anything before we hop off, any way that our listeners can follow you? Connect any social media platforms at all, just for them to have?
Yeah. I can be reached on LinkedIn at Al Campbell. Um, so definitely an opportunity for us to connect that way. Or I can be reached at al.campbell@bjc.org. Again, that's al.campbell, CAMPBELL @bjc.org. And I'd be remiss if I didn't take an opportunity to give a special shout out to the mentors that really helped to shape my life, getting me to this stage of my career. One of the first leaders that first gave me an opportunity to have a job, one of my first jobs out of college, was a man by the name of Reginald Morton.
Mm.
He gave me an opportunity to work at a local community college. And then Susan Bailey, who was one of the first leaders that really believed in me and gave me an opportunity at 32 years old to become a vice president, and just kept pouring into me and pouring into me and pouring into me. Major, major props to this lady who really invested in a young Black man.
Mm.
To one of my former president and CEOs, Mr. Neil Moore, from the University of Maryland, Capital Region and Dimensions Healthcare System, who afforded me a number of opportunities and continues to pour into me as well. My executive coach, Neil Hine, Charles Williams, Rick Stevens. Without those great pillars, I would not be where I am today. And Mr. Michael Wright, who's always there to listen and lend an ear for guidance. So thank you, and thank you so much. And to my moms, who always had the roadmap and plan, and for her prayers that have led me and continue to lead me, and to the Most High. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.